So we got more insight into the Warriors' pursuit of Lauri Markkanen and Paul George. According to Warriors reporter Anthony Slater, Utah asked for every single available pick and pick swap in the cupboard, along with multiple young players that almost certainly included Brandon Pajimski and Jonathan Kuminga. And knowing Danny Ainge, probably Moody too. I know I was an advocate for the Lauri Markkanen trade, but not at this price. Not at Danny Ainge's price. Danny Ainge wanted a king's ransom. He literally demanded every fathomable draft asset and multiple key young players for Lauri Markkanen, like this dude is Giannis or something. Get out of here, bro. I'm glad Golden State didn't make this trade because it would have been a fleecing. Danny Ainge would have had them bent over a barrel while running their pockets if they made this trade. It's ridiculous, bro. And also, according to the reports from this article, several sources from inquiring teams believe re-signing Lauri was always the Jazz's intended outcome, and that his true availability was a mirage. So basically, Lauri was never really available. Danny Ainge was dangling Lauri on the trade market to see if he can catch a desperate team slipping. And no one fell for it. That's why the Kings backed out of their Lauri Markkanen pursuit as early as they did and pivoted to DeMar DeRozan. That's why the conversations between San Antonio and Utah never got serious. Both teams realized Danny Ainge was unserious and never got any further. He had every intention of re-signing Lauri. He was never going to trade him for a fair price. So I can't be mad at the Warriors front office for not getting that one done. The options were either pay a king's ransom and get robbed, or you don't get Lauri. And the Warriors, rightfully so, said no thanks. Now it's clear what trade Draymond Green was referencing when he advised the Warriors not to pull the trigger on a reckless trade a few months ago. Danny Ainge wanted everything. The Warriors were highly considering it, and Draymond was like, nah, you can't do that trade. Like, that's just a ridiculous trade. Like, yeah, we get Lauri Markkanen, yeah, we get a talent upgrade, but at what cost? You're literally giving them everything. And Lauri Markkanen, he's a good player, he's a really good player. And I can't even cap and say I didn't want Lauri. Like, I really did want Lauri. But the price had to be somewhat fair. Like, if you're overpaying a little bit, I understand. But if you're giving up a king's ransom, a Giannis package for Lauri Markkanen, that might not be wise. So it is what it is. Moral of the story, don't do business with Danny Ainge. Because he's only making a trade if it's a trade that got you grabbing your ankles. Pause. In regards to the Paul George pursuit, the Warriors put a fair competitive offer on the table. But according to Anthony Slater in this article, the Clippers boxed out Golden State in the Paul George conversations. Paul George wanted to come to Golden State. Steph signed off on it. Steph was actually a part of the recruiting pitch that helped convince Paul George to come to Golden State. Golden State was willing to give Paul George the contract the Clippers wouldn't. A full 4-year max contract at age 34 for over 220 M's. Golden State was also willing to trade draft capital and young players to get it done. But what can you do when the Clippers basically say f off and we'd rather lose Paul George for nothing? Between the failed Lauri Markkanen and the Paul George pursuits, I'm more mad about the Paul George trade not happening because it seems like that was a more realistic and obtainable outcome based off where the Warriors are at. An aging star in his mid-30s, but still a really good player that plays a premium position on the wing. But due to his age and injury risk, on top of the threat of him leaving LA for nothing, and him wanting to come to Golden State, when you consider all those factors, it made it so that it was possible he could be had on a reasonable price. A reasonable price that didn't cost you all your draft capital and all your young players. Every party involved wanted it to happen, except for the Clippers. But unfortunately, you can't make a poverty franchise make the logical decision that's best for the team. They chose to pass on getting assets back for their second best player just to be petty. That's not a logical move. That's what terribly run teams do. That's what poverty franchises do. But would you expect anything less from a franchise like the Clippers that's never won anything? Not really. On to the next tidbit of news. With the additions of DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson, and Buddy Hield, Golden State reportedly believes they improved this season based off their analytically driven metrics. So, did the Warriors improve? I think they definitely improved. If you compare this roster to last season's roster, yes, they lost Klay Thompson, but they did a damn good job replacing him. At first, it seemed like Klay was dipping for nothing, but they was able to leverage him leaving by turning it into a sign and trade with Dallas. In a series of moves, all woven into a 5-team trade, they basically got back Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson. They lost Klay and Chris Paul, but I believe the additions of DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson, and Buddy Hield is enough to offset what they lost, as well as players being deployed in more distinguishable roles. Yes, you lost Klay, but now a lot of those minutes are going to a defensive-oriented guard. The Warriors' lack of on-ball defense last season was concerning. Klay's deterioration as a defensive player made it a lot harder for the starting lineup to hold up defensively, because now instead of Klay being a defensive asset, he had to cover for him. He couldn't stay in front of nobody. He could still compete defensively against bigger wings, but his lateral quickness took a huge hit after the injuries. So defensively, it was way harder to play him next to Steph. That's where Melton and Kyle Anderson thrive, on-ball defense, as well as team defense too. Both guys are playmakers defensively. They're going to get a lot of steals. They're going to get a decent amount of blocks every now and then. They make plays, which is going to juice their transition offense, another area where the Warriors struggled. Now that they have more defensive playmakers, they're going to be on a fast break a lot more, which should lead to a lot more easier baskets. Now, while Buddy Hield's not Klay Thompson, he can be poor man's Klay Thompson at a fraction of the cost. Comparing Buddy Hield to Klay ain't really fair to Buddy Hield. He's not that level of player, but he's still a really good shooter. one of the best shooters of the past decade. He's going to fill a similar role that Klay Thompson leaves behind on a smaller scale and allow the Warriors to run similar sets. But at this point in their careers, you actually might get more efficient three-point shooting from Buddy Hield. The other factor that's kind of a big deal is that Buddy Hield is more than willing to accept a role off the bench. There's no egos that need to be stroked in this situation. If you need to bench Buddy Hield, you can with no pushback. If you need to cut down on Buddy Hield's minutes to give Paz more minutes or Melton more minutes, you can do that. So when you factor in their new additions, on top of the internal improvement from the young guys, mainly Paz and Kuminga, they definitely improved. The Warriors won 46 games last season, and that's with Draymond sabotaging the season. Draymond missed 27 games, bro. 27 games, and they still won 46. Imagine if he simply doesn't get suspended. They would have easily been a 50-win team last season. Internal improvement plus the new additions, Draymond being more available by itself makes his team better. Now, are they improved enough to go from losing in the play-in to title contenders? I'm not so sure about that. They still lack a true second option, and by extension, a second shot creator. Without that, I don't think their ceiling is high enough to win the championship. They might be able to rack up wins in the regular season just fine, but once you get deeper and deeper into the playoffs, and you're facing tougher and tougher defenses and tougher defensive schemes, it's going to be hard to win 4 series with Steph Curry as your only real scoring threat. Can Kuminga average 20 points a game next season? I think he can, but he hasn't proven that he can be counted upon to do that in the playoffs against elite defenses. So in short, yes, the Warriors improved, but not enough to be where they need to be. Which brings us to the last topic. Steph Curry is eligible for a $62 million extension. But so far, he hasn't had any conversations with the Warriors about accepting it. Is this a scenario where Steph Curry doesn't sign in order to put pressure on the front office? Possibly. Personality-wise, I don't think Steph is the type to just demand things from the front office. So this is a way to send a clear message. Upgrade the roster, or I'm not signing. And Steph's comments during the Olympics was interesting. He basically said the plan is to be a Warrior for life, but don't get it twisted. I want to win championships. I want to compete. If our team is bottom feeders, or we're not even trying to get better, he's gone. I think at some point Steph extends before the deadline, but he can theoretically make things very interesting for the front office and pressure them to up their sense of urgency. I guess we'll see how it plays out. But anyways, that's all I got for y'all. If I entertained you or you learned something new, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. I'll holler at you on the next one. Peace.